Welcome to County Reports. I'm your host, Philip Marin. Please welcome today's guest, Craig Bumgarner. Craig.
Good morning, Phil. How are you?
Good. Craig, we're here today to talk about zoning issues in the local towns of Putnam County. It's my understanding that the trend in Putnam County that a lot of towns are upzoning. Can you explain what that means?
Yeah, Phil. Briefly, what's happening in most of the towns here in Putnam is you're seeing a trend for all of the towns to increase some of the requirements for their zoning codes, and the one that we're seeing mainly is acreage. So, for example, if you could previously construct a home on a 1-acre lot, you're seeing that now going to 4, even up to 6-acre lots.
Now, what purpose does this serve for the town and the people in the community?
Well, there's a lot of pressure on the local town boards to limit development, and this is a good way to do it because with steep slopes, with DEC regulations, DEP regulations, the available land to be developed is shrinking. So what they do is they upzone, they make you have bigger lots, and it forces less housing to be developed in a particular area.
How does this affect those few remaining people in Putnam County that have large tracts of undeveloped residential land? Is that going to affect the value of their properties, or will it actually increase it?
Well, that's the big argument. A lot of the town boards are saying that upzoning is actually helping the property values because it's keeping the area from being overburdened. But of course, to the property owner themselves, they could feel that they're losing some value because whereas they used to be able to subdivide a property into maybe 15, 20 houses, now you might be looking at 4 or 5.
Now, I think there is another effect, and I don't know if the town's ever considered this, but when you put more homes in, you have more families coming in, you have more children going into the school system. Residential property taxes don't really cover the cost for the school, the additional cost. And do you think that's another reason why towns do this, limit the number of children that could be attending the school? Because property taxes, school taxes are the big burden.
Yes, I'm sure that's got something to do with it. I mean, basically, the statistic you hear is that for every dollar received in residential taxes, they pay $1.50 in services. So, in fact, it probably does have something to do with it, although, you know, I tend to see that the town boards are more interested in their tax base and their taxes than the school taxes because that's another entity and somebody else handling that.
Okay, now, just say I'm a landowner that has pre-approved Board of Health on a subdivision on my property. Are the new zoning laws retroactive? Are they going back and taking that away from the property owner if he has previous Board of Health approval, or is that not allowed?
It really depends on a case-by-case basis. We are seeing where a lot of the towns are recognizing pre-existing rights and treating it as a pre-existing non-conforming, which basically means you can go ahead and develop under the old regulations. But there are certainly some towns that are looking to go back and apply this stuff retroactively. The area where we see that most often is with the setback upzoning. You have some of the...
What's a setback so people at home can understand?
Typically, if you're looking to construct something on your property, there is a certain distance that you need from your property line to whatever structure that you're going to be creating.
Whether it's a pool or a shed or an addition.
Exactly. Pool, shed, addition, a deck maybe. And you know, we have a lot of lake communities within Putnam County. You have Lake Carmel and Putnam Lake, and some of these properties that were developed on, you know, 60 by 100 lots and so forth. And so when the upzoning takes place there, you really have to take a look at the regulations because what can happen is the setbacks are already so tight in these areas, and then if those get increased by a town board or through a new zoning regulation, you can really have a problem where somebody's living on a parcel of property where they virtually can't expand at all. So
now, if someone was going to fight that, litigate that, do they have a claim that a substantial right of theirs is being hampered by a new zoning regulation that didn't exist before?
Typically before you, I mean, if you were going to try to challenge the regulation overall, you could proceed straight to court. But what we see people do usually in that situation would be to go to their local zoning board of appeals, apply for a variance. And I think the local zoning board of appeals are usually you know, they usually are trying to work with the homeowner and realize that there's space constricted on that lot and so forth. And the other thing that you'll see is that when you're, you know, if you do happen to go to the zoning board of appeals, is that they often look at the character of the neighborhood. It's one of the criteria that they would use. So in looking at the character of the neighborhood, they realize that the other people are, surrounding this property are usually in a similar situation.
Now, going back to people that are looking to do a new project, say build a new house, what kind of hurdles can they expect now with some of these new zoning regulations that come in that didn't exist, say, 2 years ago? Can you give us some examples?
Yes, it's the people who are looking to develop in the future who are really going to be most affected by the upzoning, because, as I say, many of the towns have considered that some of the other stuff is pre-existing non-conforming. On the stuff that is new to development or new projects coming in, there will be a significant impact. I mean, you got to figure.
Are there also new environmental regulations?
Yes, I mean, you're seeing some of the towns are increasing some of their wetland setback areas and so forth. We see a lot of steep slopes ordinances, which wasn't something that was very common in the past.
Of course, to me, I understand what the term steep slope means, but explain that. I mean, lots of parts of Putnam County are very hilly.
Exactly.
And this is what we're addressing, building on these hillsides.
Yes, exactly. And that's something that probably 10 years ago even was not a common regulation, but now most of the towns in Putnam do have them. So between the steep slope regulations and the more stringent wetland regulations, it's getting to the point where Putnam is going to be developed out at, some point in the near future here. The upzoning is really affecting that. I mean, I've seen areas that have gone from 1 acre to as high as 3 acres. Some of the 2-acre parcels, I know in Patterson, have gone up to 6 acres. So, you need a significant amount of property just to put a single-family home on.
Now, we mentioned a term a couple times, pre-existing non-conforming. Can you explain exactly, a lot of people talk about this, I think there's a lot of misperception of exactly what it means, what rights you have if you have a piece of property that's pre-existing non-conforming. Can you explain exactly what that means in the sphere of zoning?
Yes, a pre-existing non-conforming property is something that was in existence prior to the adoption of a regulation. Okay, so for example, if you had a house that was built on a half-acre lot, and then the town subsequently zones that 1-acre zoning in that residential district, that house is existing there, it's allowed to remain there because it was there before the regulation was adopted. And pre-existing non-conforming can relate to lot size. It can even relate to use. For example, you'll see a lot of areas here in Putnam where there's businesses kind of dotted along some residential areas. Those are businesses that have been here for a very long time and can remain.
Now what rights do those businesses have as far as pre-existing non-conforming? I mean, if they wanted to expand their business, okay, within the confines of what existed, do they have to go to the Zoning Board of Appeals or apply for permits and things of that nature?
In many cases they do, because when you have that pre-existing non-conforming status, it doesn't permit you to continue to expand or do anything you want there. It typically gives you the right to continue to occupy that area in the same manner as you're currently occupying it, but any expansion or any change to that use would typically require you going back to your town's zoning board.
And does that eliminate your pre-existing non-conforming use?
In what sense? I'm sorry.
Well, if you want to expand your business, say put an outbuilding up, and you have pre-existing non-conforming, you go apply for a permit for that new building, does that affect the existing structures?
No, it doesn't.
Okay.
No, it doesn't. Really, it would just be, because you're expanding something that is now not consistent with the town's local zoning, you would require the zoning board's approval and a building permit, but that would never affect the manner in which you're already there operating.
Now, Craig, if I have to, or a homeowner has to put in for a variance at the Zoning Board of Appeals or for any other issues, is there a process that needs to be followed?
There is a process, and they vary slightly from town to town, but generally they're the same. You would file an application with your zoning board. They usually require that you notify some of your surrounding property owners, and then you appear at a meeting for a public hearing.
Is it a good idea to have an attorney present, or it depends on the gravity of the matter?
It usually depends on the situation, and if somebody has a question as to whether they need an attorney or not, or would like some assistance, they can call my office. I'm located here in Carmel, and I'll let them know if it's something they should have counsel on or if it's something they can proceed on their own with.
Very good.
Okay.
Craig, thanks a lot for coming on the show.
Okay.
I think people learned a lot about this issue, and hopefully I'll have you on the show again about something else.
Okay, thanks for your time.